A dying father trusted the wrong man with his daughter, but a wandering cowboy with nothing but a pistol and a pure heart risked everything to save her from a fate worse than death. Please subscribe the channel, press bell, like, comments, and share this video. Thanks for watching. The dust rose in orange clouds across the Texas plains as Samuel Hartley drew his last breath on the weathered porch of his failing ranch. His daughter, 19-year-old Clara, knelt beside him, her auburn hair tangled by the relentless wind, her green eyes flooding with tears she had tried so hard to contain. "Promise me you will go to William Crawford," Samuel whispered, his calloused hand trembling as he reached for her cheek. "He was my closest friend in the cavalry. He will take care of you when I am gone. I have written to him already. He will give you a good life, Clara, a proper husband, security." Clara pressed her father's hand against her face, feeling the rough skin that had worked this land for 30 years. "Papa, please do not leave me." But death does not wait for daughters to be ready, and by the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Samuel Hartley was gone. 3 weeks later, Clara arrived in the town of Redemption Creek, with nothing but a small trunk of belongings and the letter her father had written to his old friend. William Crawford met her at the stagecoach station, a tall man with silver-streaked hair and a smile that never quite reached his cold blue eyes. "Your father was a good man," Crawford said, taking her trunk from her hands. "I will honor his memory by seeing you properly settled." The Crawford ranch was grand compared to the modest homestead Clara had left behind. The house sprawled across the landscape like a sleeping giant, its windows gleaming in the afternoon light. But despite its beauty, Clara felt a chill settle into her bones the moment she crossed the threshold. Crawford was polite in those first days, almost paternal in his attention. He provided her with new dresses, introduced her to the townspeople as his ward, and spoke often of finding her a suitable husband among the wealthy ranchers of the territory. But as the weeks passed, Clara began to notice the way his eyes lingered on her a moment too long, the way his hand would brush against her arm with increasing frequency, the way his voice dropped to something hungry when they were alone. "Your father trusted me with his most precious possession," Crawford said one evening, cornering her in the parlor, "and I intend to keep you very close indeed." Clara's blood ran cold. "Mr. Crawford, you misunderstand my father's intentions. He wanted you to help me find a respectable match, not to—" "Your father was dying and desperate," Crawford interrupted, his mask of civility slipping. "He signed a contract giving me full guardianship over you and your future. You will marry whom I choose, and I have chosen myself." The trap had been set long before Clara ever stepped off that stagecoach. She tried to leave that night, slipping out through the kitchen door, with only the clothes on her back and the few coins she had hidden in her petticoat. But Crawford's men caught her before she reached the edge of the property, dragging her back to the house where Crawford waited with a leather strap in his hand and fury burning in his eyes. "Try to leave again," he said, his voice eerily calm, "and I will ensure you never walk again." The bruises faded, but Clara's spirit did not break. She learned to move through the house like a ghost, to lower her eyes when Crawford entered a room, to count the days until she could formulate a better plan. The wedding was set for the end of the month, and Clara knew that once those vows were spoken, she would be trapped forever. It was on a Tuesday morning that everything changed. Crawford had taken her into town to purchase fabric for her wedding dress, a cruel parade meant to cement his claim on her in the eyes of the community. Clara walked beside him with downcast eyes, her wrist gripped firmly in his hand, when a voice rang out across the dusty street. "William Crawford." The man who spoke stood in the middle of the road, his boots planted firmly in the dirt, his hand resting casually on the pistol at his hip. He was tall and lean, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. His jaw was set with quiet determination, and when his gaze met Clara's, something sparked between them that she could not name. "Elijah Kane," Crawford said, his grip on Clara tightening. "I thought you had left this territory." "I came back." The cowboy's voice was low and steady. Heard some troubling things about you, Crawford. Heard you have been taking what does not belong to you." Crawford laughed, but there was nervousness beneath it. "This is my ward. Her father entrusted her to my care."
"Is that so?"
Elijah's eyes never left Clara's face. "Then why does she look at you like a trapped animal looks at a hunter?" The tension in the street was suffocating. Townspeople had stopped their business to watch, sensing violence in the air. Clara's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. "This is none of your concern, Kane," Crawford said. Elijah took a step forward. "I am making it my concern. Release the lady." What happened next occurred in a blur of motion and sound. Crawford shoved Clara aside and reached for his pistol, but Elijah was faster. 2 shots rang out, and Crawford crumpled to the ground, clutching his shoulder. Before anyone could react, Elijah had crossed the distance between them, scooped Clara up onto his horse, and spurred the animal into a gallop that carried them out of town and into the endless expanse of the prairie. They rode until the sun began to set, until Clara was certain no one was following them. Only then did Elijah slow the horse and help her down beside a small creek shaded by cottonwood trees. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his storm-gray eyes searching her face with a gentleness that made her want to weep. "No," she whispered. "You saved me. I knew your father," Elijah said quietly. "We worked cattle together 15 years ago, before he settled down and I kept drifting. He was a good man, the best I ever knew. When I heard what Crawford was doing with his daughter, I could not stand by." Clara felt the tears she had been holding back finally spill over. "He thought he was protecting me. He thought Crawford was still the man he knew in the cavalry." "War changes some men for the better," Elijah said. "Others, it breaks something inside. Crawford came back from the fighting with a darkness in him. Your father never knew." They made camp by the creek that night, and Elijah shared his provisions with her as he told her about his life on the trail. He had been a cowboy since he was 14, working ranches from Texas to Montana, never staying in one place long enough to call it home. He had lost his own family to cholera when he was young, and the grief had made a wanderer of him. "Why did you come back to Redemption Creek?" Clara asked. Elijah stared into the fire, his face illuminated by the dancing flames. "I heard a rumor about a girl who looked like an angel being dragged through town by the devil himself. I could know. Ride past without knowing the truth. And now that you know..." He looked at her then, and Clara saw something vulnerable beneath his rugged exterior. "Now I reckon I will have to make sure you reach somewhere safe." Over the following days, as they traveled north toward a town where Clara had a distant aunt, something blossomed between them that neither had expected. Elijah showed Clara how to read the stars for navigation, how to start a fire with damp wood, how to spot water in a dry landscape. Clara told him about her mother, who had died when she was young, and about the songs her father used to sing while working the cattle. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, Elijah reached over and took Clara's hand in his. "I have never wanted to stop moving before," he said quietly. "But when I look at you, I start thinking about what it might be like to build something, to stay." Clara turned to face him, her heart so full she feared it might burst. "I have never felt safe with anyone the way I feel safe with you." "Clara," he said her name like a prayer. "I am just a cowboy with nothing to offer but a strong back and a willing heart." "That is more than I have ever been offered before," she replied. "Everything Crawford promised was a lie wrapped in silk. What you offer me is the truth." He kissed her then, beneath the vast Texas sky, and Clara felt as though she had finally found the home she had been searching for her entire life. It was not a place, she realized, but a person. It was the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and the gentle strength of his arms, and the way he looked at her, as though she were the most precious thing he had ever encountered. They reached her aunt's homestead 3 days later, but Clara did not want to say goodbye. Neither did Elijah. "Marry me," he said, standing in the morning light, with his hat in his hands. I know we have only known each other a short while, but I feel as though my soul has known yours for a lifetime. I will work harder than any man has ever worked to give you a good life. I will love you until the stars fall from the sky. I will never raise a hand to you or speak a harsh word in anger. I will be the man your father believed Crawford was. I will be worthy of the trust he placed in whoever would care for you." Clara stepped forward and placed her hands on his weathered cheeks. "My father wanted me to find a man who would protect me and cherish me. He just looked in the wrong direction. Yes, Elijah Kane, I will marry you." They were wed 3 weeks later in a small chapel on the edge of town, with Clara's aunt and a handful of curious townspeople as witnesses. The preacher read from the scriptures about love being patient and kind, and Clara thought about all the roads that had led her to this moment. The grief of losing her father, the terror of Crawford's house, the miracle of a cowboy who appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not even known she was praying. That night, in the small cabin Elijah had rented for them until they could find land of their own, he held her close and whispered promises against her hair. "I will build you a house with my own 2 hands. I will plant fruit trees so you will have shade in the summer. I will give you children if God sees fit to bless us. And every morning, I will wake up grateful that you chose me." Clara nestled closer to him, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his heart. "My father thought he was passing me to safety when he sent me to Crawford. But perhaps he was wrong. Perhaps he was passing me to you, only by a more difficult route." Elijah kissed the top of her head. "Then I am grateful for every mile of that route, because it led you to me." Outside, the stars burned bright above the prairie, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote sang its lonely song to the moon. But inside the cabin, there was only love and warmth and the beginning of a life that would flourish in the years to come. Clara's father had passed his daughter to a friend, but it was a cowboy who had truly taken her from harm and given her a future worth living.